For more on this, we are joined by Pan Xuanming, a Senior Research Fellow at the Guangzhou Institute of Greater Bay Area, as well as CNA's Deborah Wong joining us from Shenzhen. First to you, Deborah. You mentioned in the story that the central government in Beijing is making a fresh push to develop Hengqin. Why is it that the leaders care so much about the development of this tiny place?
Well, quite simply because Macau needs the space to diversify its economy. It wants to reduce reliance on gaming from about 80% of its GDP to about 40% by the year 2028. And that urgency to give Macau that infrastructure space to do so, to explore new engine growths, really accelerated during the pandemic, where we saw a tourism revenue drop, gaming revenue drop, and it really hurt Macau's economy during those years. Now, we attended a tech fair in Macau quite recently, and we also saw quite a number of companies from mainland China, specifically as well from the island of Hengqin. There were some semiconductor firms there. We spoke to, the executives there, and they told us that the reason why, they're going to attend the trade fair in Macau, and the reason why they want to explore opportunities in Macau to see better integration is because of the talent. They say that the island's proximity to Macau talent really does give them greater access to the Portuguese-speaking world. So if you take a step back and look at China as a whole, we can also see that Macau and Hengqin's integration does, help serve as a conduit between China and foreign investment.
Now let's bring you in here, Dr. Pan. China has a pretty big ambition. They aim to hit 75% urbanization by 2035. In a way, does that mean that there will be a lot more infrastructure than population? And in this case, then, should Hengqin avoid going down that path?
Thank you for your question. Yes. I think in terms of the infrastructure and the urbanization, China has done a very good job in the past 2 decades. And I think in 2015, I think the urbanized rate of cities are about like 56%. And now this year, I think it has risen to probably like 67% or more. So it's an increase of 10% in the last 10 years. So obviously, there's a very significant increase in the space and the urbanization of infrastructures in China. But at the same time, in the last few years, we can see 2 significant changes. The first is the population drop. I think now the birth rate and the population increase rate has significantly came into a very low growth period, and it drops from like 1.3% to perhaps like 0.6 or 0.7% in the next few years. So that's the first point, and the second point is the living space is, I think it's enough for most of the cities, and for most cities on average, I think every citizen have like one room for them including through the living spaces. So, and I think in the future, I would not see there will be a very big stimulus to the increase of infrastructure in the future. Instead of the hard infrastructure, I will envisage an increase of soft infrastructure. It means that you are not going to buy spaces, you are going to buy more services in your space. Like public services, like 5G, like other living services, community services. So that will be the future of development of the cities in China, especially in the Greater Bay Area, including Hengqin.
Right. So, Deborah, Hengqin is a tiny place, but for those of our viewers who haven't been to this place, it actually lies just below well-established cities, Tier 1 cities like Guangzhou and Shenzhen. So what do the people make of it? I mean, does it make it more challenging to convince people to move over there?
In a way, yes. My own experience traveling around Hengqin while shooting this story was that it was really quiet. The streets were quite empty, And we had a conversation with the taxi driver who was driving us around. He said that business is really slow. He hasn't made much money because there really isn't enough people on the island, enough passengers on the island for him to drive around. Now, companies who require greater access as well to supply chains in the heart of Guangdong, where Dongguan is, where Zhongshan is, they would rather also base their operations out of inland cities like Guangzhou. But Hengqin, we have to remember, has its own draw as well. We must remember that it primarily serves, the residents of Macau. It really wants to integrate Macau into the Greater Bay Area. So the proximity works for those people like Ken Lai that you heard in the story, because Macau is just next to Hengqin. He gets to commute there very often. The only issue that Ken Lai also raised, and that's, the same concern that a lot of people have, is that amenities are lacking at the moment. They are still going to be built. So it really is quieter. And now it really all depends on how enticed they are by the preferential tax rates, whether the tax rebates do make economical sense for them to move over.
Right. To you again,
Dr. Pan, I just want to bring you in here. When we talk about...
Go ahead, Deborah.
Dr. Pan, I just want to bring you in here. When we talk about China, as a whole, it's not just Guangdong, but also the central government aims to even out economic distribution, and that's something that they've highlighted in their work report every year. Do you think that's influenced priorities and growth regions in different provinces?
Yes. As I mentioned in the last answer to the last question, I will envisage increase in the soft infrastructure instead of the hard infrastructure as compared to the past experience, because China invests heavily in infrastructure in the past few decades, railroad, like real estate. In the future, I think China will invest more in the tech sector, including 5G, automation of cars, automation of driving, new energy, electronic vehicles, sort of that. And I think this will be the future for the industries as developed in Hengqin. And we will see the growth in digital economy and green economy in the future. And I think this will also be the future for Hengqin. So we will envisage an increase in these sectors, and I will see this as a new engine for the development of cities in China. And Hengqin will definitely set up a sample for the Chinese cities.
But Dr. Pan, there are people on social media saying that the high cost of living there actually makes Zhuhai perhaps a more attractive place. Are authorities doing anything about that?
It depends on which city you compare to. So if you compare to Hong Kong, I think, or you compare to Macau, in Hengqin, the living cost is relatively low. But compared to the mainland in other cities, I think in Hengqin, the real estate prices are relatively high at this moment. But it depends on what kind of business or what kind of communities are you looking for to offshore in this area? Like for many Macau residents, I think they are still looking into buying new opportunities, buying new apartments in Hengqin, because the Macau government encouraged the Macau residents to move in Hengqin, and I will see an increase of Hengqin residents, especially from Macau.
Right, and Dr. Pan, there is a lot of talk about Hengqin wanting to focus on like TCM, which is traditional Chinese medicine, tech, culture, tourism, etc. But how far do you think that's going to help help Macau diversify, and what are some of the indicators we should look at to track its progress?
Yes. These four pillars of the new industries are very important for Hengqin, but actually they are the starting point of new industries, because when you mention TCM, tech, culture, tourism, it connected to other industries. For example, for TCM, it connected to biotech, medical services. So when you invest in TCM, you're actually investing on the other biotech and medical industries in Hengqin. So I will envisage an increase of industrial development and especially the jobs increase in Hengqin that provide for the Macau residents in the future. So I think the authorities in Hengqin and in Macau as well, they are doing a very good job to attract business and investment in these four industries. And in addition to these four industries, they have, I think, find some new opportunities to develop the connected industries, such as the medical services, biotech, and EV and other and electronic services. So I would see this as a very good future for industrial development.
Well, I've certainly learned a lot about Hengqin. Thanks so very much for sharing. Pan Xuanming, Senior Research Fellow at the Guangzhou Institute of Greater Bay Area, and of course CNA's Deborah Wong in Shenzhen.